The application has 4 different user roles, which are Stencil Manager, Purchase User, Vendor, and Administrator. Let's start with logging in as the Stencil Manager. The Stencil Manager is responsible for managing the existing and incoming stencils and the locations area, racks, and slots within the factory. When navigating to the stencil overview, on the left a list of stencils is shown. The list contains all the active stencils. Here, the stencils can be added, requested, retired, and assigned or unassigned from slots. On the right side, the information about the stencil can be viewed, such as stencil details, location, team center data, files, for example Gerber files, stencil history, which includes a record of past status changes, comments left, location changes, and reorders, and also a list of stencils for the same PCB. I will now demonstrate how to assign a new stencil to a slot. We can do this by clicking on the Assign Slot button and then picking an open slot either from the list or by using the Scan Location QR button. The slot has now been assigned to the stencil, and under the History tab, 2 new updates are shown, one describing the status change and the other the association to the slot. On the top right of the page, a new stencil can be added or requested. Click on Request New Stencil, then type the PCB number, add delivery dates, set the priority, and add the reason for request. After submitting, the request gets forwarded to the purchase user. I will now switch to the purchase user and complete the ordering process. The submitted stencil request is visible in the purchase user's inbox section on the dashboard, and when navigating to the stencil request overview, additional details about the request are shown. From there, the ordering process for the stencil request can be started by clicking on the Order button. Parts of the order are automatically pre-filled with the details from the stencil request. The purchase user will need to review the files, select the supplier, select a purchase order, fill in the order form including the Stencil Manager, who will be the receiver, and the delivery location, and review the auto-filled delivery details from the stencil request. The order is then ready to be submitted. After submitting the order form can be downloaded and the selected supplier receives an email notifying them about the new order. To see how the orders can be processed, I will now sign in as the vendor. In the vendor portal, the vendor can see all the orders placed for their supplier. On the right side, the vendor can download the order form and see an overview of the order details including purchase order, team center data, and files. The vendor can also post a question for the receiving stencil manager, for example by asking, "Can I go with 180mm thickness?" When an order is ready to be sent, the vendor can use the Finalize Order functionality. They are required to fill in the final price and can leave a delivery note or attach the invoice within the portal. After this, the order is ready to be shipped. Let's head back to the Stencil Manager's portal and see how these actions are shown there. We can see we have 5 inbox notifications that require an action. When navigating to the inbox overview, the list of stencils that require attention are shown. Here, the Stencil Manager can reply to the vendor questions, view and accept received stencils, and reorder and retire stencils which have the status End of Life. Here, the stencil in the submitted status shows the questions left by the vendor. If necessary, the Stencil Manager can reply to the vendor posts. For example, the proposed thickness by the vendor is acceptable. After posting a reply, the question can be marked as read. To accept a stencil order which the vendor has shipped, the Stencil Manager needs to fill in the amount of cycles before warning, and then finish the process by accepting. The stencil is now available to be used. Let's use the mobile app to place the accepted stencil in the slot. On mobile, the Stencil Manager can view the slots, manage the stencils, assign stencil to slots, view the inbox, and manage their accounts. When navigating to the Scan feature, the stencil or slot QR code can be scanned. I will first scan the stencil QR code. After scanning, the overview showing the stencil details and history is shown. Here, the stencil can be assigned to a slot by using the Assign Slot feature and scanning the QR code of the slot location. After viewing and confirming the details of the scanned stencil and slot, the process can be completed by confirming. The stencil and slot are now associated. After logging in as a stencil manager, you land on your own personal dashboard. With the use of this dashboard, you're able to quickly navigate to certain topics within the application. For this moment of change, we are going to add an extra tile to the dashboard. This tile will quickly navigate you to your messages inbox. We already have the Mendix Studio Pro modeler open and can start by searching for the dashboard page. Double-click on the dashboard page with stencil management behind it. Now scroll down to the part where we have the tiles, new arrival, end of life, and add existing stencil available. Now right-click on the green bar on the left side of the new arrivals tile and select Insert Row below. Select the option which shows 3 columns of size 4 to add to the new row. Next, we need to change the settings for each column from autofill to manual by double-clicking the first column and select manual for all 3 options. Change the size for each option to 4 and click OK. Now right-click the most outer dotted line within the column of the Add Existing Stencil and select Copy. Next, we right-click in the first column of our newly created row and select Paste. We now have a duplicate tile, but we need to adjust some settings so the new tile matches our goal. First, we double-click the text Add Existing Stencil and rename this to Inbox. Now click the OK button. Now double-click the line underneath the text Inbox and navigate to the Appearance tab. Now go to the Class text box and replace the text + with Envelope. Now go to the General tab, click on Do Nothing and select Show a Page. Now search for Stencil Inbox. Double-click the result and click OK. Now, double-click the newly added row and click the Edit button. Now click Show the Layout Grid row for selected roles. Deselect everything except for the Stencil Manager user. Now click OK and click OK again. We can now run our changes to see the result in the browser. We see the newly added tile on the dashboard. When we click on the new tile, we are redirected to the inbox.